Tell me, I'm like curious about, when your time with the Guardians, like obviously that's a little bit different. You're not a youth player, you've got to compete. That's your job. Like what kind of stuff would you see injury wise? And then what kind of stuff would you see if you ever like if guys would change anything mechanically or maybe effort wise that would have a big effect? Like I'm genuinely kind of just curious about it. Like what was your experience with that?
Yeah, so at the pro level, you're going to see all sorts of injuries.
Mhm.
Not just shoulder and elbow. We saw a lot of stuff there. I saw a lot of stuff there. Low back injuries, hamstring injuries, knee injuries, neck injuries. Um, Baseball players get beat up. You know,
Yeah.
it's just the nature of the beast when it comes with the sport. But um, when it came to like shoulder and elbow injuries, I'm certainly not going to sit there and try to change the mechanics of a professional baseball player.
Yeah.
Whatever he did to kind of get to that level has worked for him over those years. So I'm certainly not going to try to change that. That's not my job. I'm going to
Mhm.
stay in my lane. That's up to the pitching coach and the coaches around that player at that level. My job mainly in the training room, working with the trainer, was just to get these guys right so they can throw a baseball. So we were identifying things more like a physical therapy level,
Mhm.
making sure they had proper range of motion for a baseball player. They had proper strength. They had no swelling, no pain, proper flexibility. And psychologically, they felt comfortable enough to get back on the field and start a throwing program and get back on the mound or back in the game. So that was my job as a physio.
Did uh did players ever talk about like, max effort was contributed to it and then maybe they dialed it down and that was, helped, or was that not even something that you guys would talk about?
Yeah, we would talk about that stuff. There's all sorts of reasons how or why, these guys would get injured. A whole array of things that could happen. And each guy was kind of different and each situation was different. It was day to day, week to week. So it really varied. It all kind of depended. Maybe one guy would get hurt because of max effort. Maybe one guy would get hurt because maybe he rested too long. He might have been on the bench too long. There might have been an inning that went too long into, while he was sitting there resting. Maybe he didn't get a proper warm routine in that day. Maybe it was too cold that day early on in the spring. He just couldn't get warm enough, couldn't get loose enough. Maybe he just didn't feel right going out there. So there's a lot of different variables on how injuries happen and how they occurred.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. That's like one thing I told a parent, and if he watches this, he'll probably know who he is. But he said, I had talked to him about the importance of on-ramping. It's kind of the concept of like, say you take an off season off, which is great, right? Give your arm some rest, but you on ramp is, you start off gradually, and you're building yourself up to where you're ready to compete.
Hmm.
And he kind of like, skipped the on ramping phase and then got hurt pretty much right away. And so, um, I think personally, I actually had an injury too where I didn't honor. It was actually during Christmas break in college, and you have 6 weeks in college, right? And so we would go back kind of in the middle and throw bullpens. And I'm a freshman, so I go back. I haven't thrown a ball in like 3 weeks, and I'm trying to impress my coach, like in a bullpen, which is meaningless, right? But I'm trying to, throw close to 100%. And then I don't know what happened, kind of like something in the shoulder, like, bicep tendon. I don't even know for sure. Maybe you would probably be able to diagnose me, but um, something happened just from that, and I wasn't able to get my velo up the whole year. It kind of went down on like 7, 8 miles an hour. But from that experience and just experience with kids, I know I preach on ramping, one of the most important things to me. So, what would you say to that as far as like, okay, you haven't thrown in a while, like how do you build yourself back up to being able to compete and throw max and throw hard as you can?
Well, it's pretty simple. We build out progressive interval throwing programs over time. So, I mean, if you've been out of throwing for a while, whether you're injured or you're resting, you haven't thrown a baseball in say 3 to 4 months, you're going to have to work yourself back into throwing shape. I mean,
Mhm.
you would think that this is common sense, but um, unfortunately, these things do happen. So for me personally, if I'm going to ramp someone back up, it's going to be a progressive interval throwing program, an ITP I call it, and it's going to be built out with proper dosaging and intensity and distances um, over the course of however long you want to build that program out for. We do these things all the time for postoperative cases, for acute injuries, chronic injuries, and then the case of shutting it down for the winter for 3 to 4 months, and then building up that athlete to get back into pitching form or throwing form before the season starts. So
Yeah.
ITPs.
Yeah, so I have kind of like a rule of thumb, but this is not to do with injuries. You could speak on that or just, give me your opinions on this, but it's like my kind of rule of thumb is like say I'm working with a guy and he took a month off for summer or whatever. That's like pretty common. They don't take it, ton of time off and then maybe they should take more. Say a guy takes a month off, I tell kids to take at least half of the amount of time that they took off as a period to on ramp. So you took a month off, you take 2 weeks to on ramp up before you're at your level of throwing effort that you were before. So we're not, and I see it all the time. A month off, first day back at practice, guys are ripping it. And you might not hurt yourself when you're 12 the first time, but it can happen. But if you do that, it's going to happen where you're going to get injured if you keep doing that. So I say 2 weeks, start gradual and just build up. But that's not even thinking about injury. That's just a healthy kid. He takes a month off. Give yourself a two week on ramp. What are your thoughts on time periods? Obviously, injuries are different.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I mean, I'm probably on more the conservative side, but when I build programs, the amount of time that the athlete has been down for is the amount of time I'm going to build that program back up for. So if someone hasn't been throwing for a month, I probably would double that amount of time. Instead of 2 weeks, I usually go 4 weeks,
Yeah.
4 weeks for a throwing program. And it
Mhm.
all depends. I mean, we're talking about a first baseman, a shortstop, a third baseman, an outfielder, or a pitcher. The program's going to differentiate and vary depending on the position, and also it's going to vary with distances and the amount of throws and the intensity based on their age too, and also their athleticism and the ability to throw.
100%. And like, yeah, parents, I want you to listen. Everyone thinks I'm like the most conservative guy out there for let's save the arm. We're listening to a guy that this is his specialty working with major league teams, and he's maybe more conservative than me. And listen, we're not trying to hinder the career of a young athlete. We're trying to get you guys to the highest level, right? And so if you can take that period of time to on ramp, it's not going to, oh, I need to be ready by this point. No, you need to be ready when you're 18, when you're 21. That's what we're trying to get to. So if you're
Right.
wearing your arm out when you're 10, 12, 14 years old, that's only going to destroy your career. And so it's so critical um, to have that on ramp to build it up to, maybe you don't pitch that much in the fall competitively and you're working on your body, you're going to end up throwing harder than your peers that are just pitching nonstop every single game. And I mean, we're trying to help everybody, right? And I know a lot of parents because I work with people that are in this where it's like, they can't wait to just okay, now I'm cleared by the doctor. Now I've got to go pitch 3 innings and max effort. It's wild, right? So I hope parents see this. I hope kids see this and they show their parents and believe me, we're trying to get you guys to college to pros. And if you guys listen to this, you're gonna have a much better chance.
Here's a classic saying, and I say this all the time: is the juice worth the squeeze?
Mhm.
Is it worth it?
Mhm.
What's another 2 3 weeks in
Yeah.
that 2 to 4 week throwing program, right? What's another 2 weeks,
Mhm.
especially at a youth level?
Mhm.
We have time.
Yep.
Time is one thing that we have, unless it's the game seven of the World Series and we have to get the pitcher back. And I would
Yeah.
say even in some cases, some of these guys at the pro level don't even make it back because they want to conserve themselves for the next season, right?
Yeah.
They want to make sure that they're maintaining the longevity of their career.
Mhm.
So I always go back to the saying, is the juice worth the squeeze? And most of the time it's not.